Hey guys, welcome once again to an exciting episode of Show and Tell. I am, as always, Daniel Gilmore.
And my name is Jesse Hughes. Thank you guys for listening once again. What are we talking about? What's the movie this week?
We watched Casino Royale.
Casino Royale, starring Daniel Craig, directed by Martin Campbell.
Daniel Craig was in this movie?
Yeah, he had a brief appearance.
I don't know. I was like,
as
really,
the muscle.
There was like Woody Allen was there.
What movie did you watch?
Casino Royale from the 60s,
oh,
right?
Oh, God. Yeah, here we go. That came up every time I typed it in to look up trivia on the movie.
Yeah, that's actually my first introduction to Casino Royale was that film. But I've been a pretty big Bond fan since, like, high school. So
apparently the only other time they've tried to make this Bond film was a spoof.
Yo, that's the spoof.
Okay, have you seen it?
Yeah, that's what I own it.
Is it funny?
It's cool. It's interesting.
Wait, so is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
From okay. I thought that was a totally different movie with.
No, I believe there was that, and I think there was like a mini series they made or something like that.
Okay, cool. All right, so since you have misplaced your cue cards, your notes from your viewing, do you want me to just kind of take it away, or?
Well, no, it just opens up. And it's black and white.
Awesome.
And it's Bond sitting in an office. This guy's like, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "Double O agent." So he's like, "You got to kill two people first."
Right.
And it keeps cutting back to flashbacks of Bond just beating the shit out of some dude
in a bathroom.
And it's awesome.
Yep.
And then he goes, "Who's your second?" And just shoots.
Yeah, just considerably. I love that old school.
That's my favorite scene in this movie.
Black and white aesthetic. I don't blame you. I'm not going to take that as you didn't like any other scene, because that's a really amazing scene.
Yeah. No, I thought it was done really well.
Yeah, and then of course the turn into the camera as the barrel of the gun shoots it. The Bond movie starts. It's the first Bond movie that doesn't begin with the shot down the barrel. And then you have,
but that's when he becomes James Bond, though. Like,
well, yeah, exactly. That wasn't the moment, because that was his first
yeah, but
kill.
then I mean, you don't see the first kill till then,
right? From the very beginning of this movie, it's to me just seeping with ambition. It was kind of obviously they have a new Bond coming in, Daniel Craig's first Bond movie, so they're kind of rebooting again this universe with this Bond character.
Well, and it was the first book, too.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first ever time that they've told an origin story of James Bond. He's never been a rookie on screen. He's always been well established by the time we see him.
He's not in the book, though, and that's, I think, the biggest glaring thing.
In Casino Royale, the book?
Yeah.
He's not a rookie? So did Ian Fleming never make an origin book?
No.
Okay.
He's always just James Bond.
Because this was his first, James Bond story. But yeah, to me, just so much ambition with the story, so much that they were setting up. They rethought every James Bond trope and just made it brand new and made it believable. Kind of brought it into the real world and subverted this over-the-top style that the other James Bond movies had. And to me, it's so disappointing that the three Bond movies that followed didn't follow suit with that. The three Bond movies, to me, after this one, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and Spectre, really didn't keep with what this movie was trying to do. It kind of went back to Bond traditions, which I understand for Bond purists is probably what they wanted. But to me, they really missed an opportunity with the other three movies. But this movie is thankfully very complete in what it does. I'm going to throw a couple blanket statements about, just kind of every element of a movie you judge, because it's hard to talk about individual scenes when it's an action movie, when everybody who's listening should just watch the movie.
Yeah.
We can't really, explain what's happening. Yeah. In terms of action, I'm not a big James Bond fan. I mean, I could even say I'm not a James Bond fan. I've only seen snippets of old James Bond movies on TV. I've probably seen one or two of the Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies when I was younger.
There was only one good one.
But they were never really compelling to me. They didn't have great character development. They were good, throwaway action movies.
That's the point of James Bond.
Exactly.
As far as the movies go.
Exactly, yeah. And this movie, again, was above that to me. What I do love is action movies, and more so a good action movie. And this one's right at the top of the heap for me. I love the Mission Impossible movies. This one's right up there with those. And then more recently, all of the Marvel comic book movies, qualify as great action movies to me. So in terms of action, this movie has a ton of variety. It's got the foot chase scene at the beginning, which I'm going to talk about. It's got the car chase-ish scene in the airport. It's got a shootout towards the end of the movie. There's, points when you think Bond is going to die. There's a point when you think there's going to be a car chase, and then they subvert that expectation. So I love the variety in the action. And then the filming is really well done. There's a lot of quick cuts, but when Campbell keeps the camera on the action and we get to see the follow through of what's happening, it's real. Like there's very little CGI in this movie.
Yeah, I know. I only noticed like 2 scenes.
Real stunts. And when we do, get to stay away from a series of quick cuts and we get to see an action from beginning to end, it's a real action. And I really love that about this film.
I thought there was a lot of really good attention to detail in this movie too, though.
In terms of directing,
just little
dialogue.
Things like when he is in the first you see the first security room and they're like rallying all the security guys, and he's just like running past, but you see all the guards like going into another room or something like that on the television.
Realistic, actions of other people in terms of what's going on around them.
Same thing is when it's a little bit later, but they're on the boat with how do you say his name?
Lashif.
Lashif, yes, and he goes into the other room to take the phone call or whatever, and then his like girlfriend or whatever is just in the shower.
And we're just seeing kind of that in the back.
But it's such like, I was like, oh, it's really cool, like, because you could just not have shown that.
I'd agree with that, yeah. That attention to detail, I think, applies all over, like the dialogue in terms of the script, the way the characters are developed. I love that the romantic interest isn't introduced until an hour into the movie. They're really setting up Daniel Craig's Bond as this main character and letting you get to know who he is, his sense of humor, his style, his charms. And even the villain is kind of not really brought into the limelight again until about halfway through the movie. So that's just kind of my blanket over the whole movie. I think everything is just brilliantly polished. And then I guess we'll go through kind of the story now, and I'll highlight, parts that I liked, and I'm assuming you'll do the same. So the opening credits, very awesome stylized credits. A lot of trivia I have as well.
So that's my first note there. It was a really bad song, I thought.
I like the song. It was different. It's one of like 2 or 3 male artists that have done a Bond song at the beginning credits.
Until Adele's, there was only one that had like on number 1.
Oh, really?
And it was the View to a Kill, the Duran Duran song.
Oh, okay. That was a while ago then. Yeah. It
was the 80s.
This one, Chris Cornell of Soundgarden. I like the stylized credits. It's the
credits were awesome, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fantastic
but,
credits.
I mean, like, that's all the Bond movies are heavily just, like, I think opening scenes
really
anyway.
Cool credits, yeah.
And set with the music. The music's always kind of hit or miss, I mean, but...
This one worked. I thought it's very unique in that it doesn't have the mention of the title in the song. I think it's the only one that doesn't have that. And Chris Cornell said, I couldn't even imagine saying Casino Royale in any of my songs, so, I didn't even try. This is the first movie since Dr. No, which is the first Bond movie, in 1962, that doesn't have dancing nude ladies in the opening credits because it's an origin story and it's before he has established himself as a charmer. So this is an origin story and the credits reflect that. There's a really cool nod to what happens by the end of the film during the credits as the shadow of the camera, or not a camera since it's all stylized, but passes over the Queen of Hearts. It shows Vesper's face, which is the love interest, in the Queen of Hearts. And then later in the credit, it shows her face on the Queen of Spades. The Queen of Hearts referencing that Bond is going to fall in love with her. And the Queen of Spades, as it represents bad luck, represents that she's going to betray him. So I think that's a really cool
Well, I was just waiting the entire
movie
for that to happen.
Right, yeah, of course.
I was just like, when's she going to betray him?
Something terrible has to happen, and the further you get into the movie, that's
still like pretty Bond tropey. Like, he'll meet a lady, and then like they'll do it, betray, and then she'll just,
But this one was love more than one of the rules of James Bond, according to the Japanese, is you can fall in love, but you can't be in love, and that's kind of. He tries to be in love in this movie, and that's what is ultimately his downfall, what turns him into James Bond. We are introduced to Lashif early in the movie. He has asthma, so instantly he's created as kind of this villain with a weakness that is very unique. He is constantly throughout the movie portrayed as someone with a lot to lose, and the more he loses throughout the movie, the more dangerous he becomes, and he is, to me, very compelling as a villain for that reason, because he's real. He has these real struggles, but he has a lot of power, and he's willing to go to lengths that most normal people wouldn't go to get what he needs, which is basically his own survival. There's at the beginning, the chase sequence, just an amazing, like probably my favorite action sequence. Because I used to work in a movie theater. I don't know if I talked about it on here. Yeah, I know you know, but that was the first scene I'd seen in this movie. Oh, really?
So one of 2 scenes. But yeah, it's just I came in. It's the part whenever he's like plowing through the wall.
Oh yeah,
and, like in that part.
And that's one thing I love about this scene is it's this mix of.
parkour, like
it's parkour. It's a mix of the villain's acrobatics with Bond's practicality. Like the villain will do something really, extravagant, and then Bond will go, well, I can just walk through this wall, or I can just grab this tractor and catch up with you.
Because it's like the guy climbs up the rope, but then he just like kicks down the thing, it drops all the pipes.
He's just really clever throughout it, but then
and then same thing. The guy like jumps off the thing, he like breaks the hydraulics,
right?
And then like the forklift just drops down.
Exactly, I love it. There's one of the early lines during this scene is Bond's partner is touching his ear while he's talking to Bond. And he says, stop touching your ear. And that's kind of the first time watching an action movie I realized, yeah, that is really obvious when you do that. This is actually repeated in Skyfall at the beginning of the movie. His partner at the beginning, again, is touching his ear. So it's a problem that Bond constantly runs into. It's kind of a funny nod.
And the guy's like, what? He just holds his hand there.
The actor that plays Malaka, who is the runner, is Sebastian Foucan, who is a actual parkour free runner, yeah. It took 6 weeks to film this scene, and it is the first ever foot chase in a Bond film. Missed opportunities there.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's really now that it's really, you think about it and you go, well, that sounds boring. But the way that Martin, put this sequence together and everything that happens, like when he throws the gun at him on top of the crane, he just grabs the gun and throws it at his face.
That was my favorite scene.
I love that scene.
Yeah, like just as far as like just moment, just like
just like unexpected. Yeah. There's a lot of humor in this movie. A lot of it is Daniel Craig's Bond. The kind of his response to the situation. He has he provides all the levity in the movie. And it's really funny as a result. A lot of laugh out loud moments. I was watching this with Amy. She watched about half of it until she remembered it. Because we're watching the beginning of the movie and she keeps going, oh my God. And I was like, you've seen this, right? And she was like, I don't remember any of this. And I was like, I wish I had that ability. I wish I could watch Sixth Sense again and not remember having seen it.
Wish I'd seen Sixth Sense without knowing the ending first. So.
And then Bond and this becomes a theme throughout the movie, Bond kind of fails at what he's trying to do. He's trying to capture Malaka.
Fails the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, he fails the entire movie, yeah. But he's trying to capture Malaka to get information from him. He fails, and then he's like, well, I'm going to shoot him so I can get out of here, and he just kills him.
That's a really cool part, too, just him in the embassy. Then, he's being held up. Yeah. Shoots the guy, shoots a canister, and then just bones out.
We are reminded that despite his physical prowess and quick thinking, this is a rookie 007. And then we're introduced to Judi Dench, who again is playing M. So this is one of the couple ways that the movie kind of ties into the existing Bond universe is that she is still M, although this is a new Bond. She plays M again, and Martin Campbell said, he liked what she did with the character, so he couldn't see anybody else doing it. That's why he wanted her to take the role. Going back just really quickly to Martin Campbell, didn't talk about anything else that he directed. He directed, and I didn't know this until watching this film, The Mask and the Legend of Zorro. I didn't realize that. Great movies. I like those flicks. He directed probably more notoriously for Green Lantern, which I thought was very excellently directed. It was not a good movie, but I didn't think he was the problem. And a lot of people, like the studio, pointed the blame at him.
We were talking about that before, weren't we?
Edge of Darkness, random Mel Gibson movie. That was like the first thing he did after Passion of the Christ, or after his episode, which was an okay little film. He also directed Goldeneye. So he directed the origin of Pierce Brosnan's James Bond, and then...
that's the best... new Bond film.
Is it good? I think I've seen it, but I don't remember anything from it, so maybe I haven't.
Or at least like the ones that Pierce Brosnan did.
Yeah. That's what everybody says, yeah. Best N64 game by far. Bond game, anyway.
Well, shooter.
Then another theme comes up as we are introduced to Judi Dench's M is, I want you to take your ego out of the equation, and this is something that Vesper says more than once as well. So that's kind of, and it makes sense as a theme for a rookie. He isn't successful until he learns how to take his ego out of the equation. That's what this whole movie's about, and that's what he does by the end of the film.
Like the line she says, because any thug can shoot a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, music. I meant to touch on music in my broad, stroke of the movie. I like the music. There's some cool string remixes of the Bond theme, and you never actually hear the Bond theme until the end of the movie. But you don't know it like the first time I saw it. I didn't know it until the end of the movie. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't heard the Bond theme because that's when he becomes it's kind of hinted at, especially in the airport scene. The music there is really close to it, but it never actually comes out until the very end of the movie. I thought that was a nice touch, and what they did with the music really worked for this origin story.
But yeah, that's like actually actually when he actually is James Bond, I guess, and then he actually says it, because that's the first time he delivers the line.
Right. It makes sense not to bring the tune out until then. Mm-hmm. There's a scene in the hotel where he's talking to his secretary, and this is the first time we witness that he really does have a way with women. The directing does a really good job of making this apparent without embellishing his charms for the sake of sex. There's really not a lot of sex in the film as it usually is presented in Bond movies.
I thought it was the same way with what's his D'Amico?
Dimitri, I think, with that.
His wife?
Yeah.
Because he, seduces her or whatever.
Right.
And then he's like, oh, does this make sense to you? And then she's like, oh, I'll order the champagne. And he's like, champagne for what?
Yeah, exactly. He's really focused on his job, and sex doesn't become a big part of it. And I really think they were consistent with that in all of Daniel Craig's Bond movies. You haven't seen the other three, right? They never really turn it into this, where he's sleeping with a different woman, every couple, every 30 minutes of the movie or whatever, which I might be over exaggerating, how much of a womanizer he is in other Bond films, but that's what I remember from what I've seen of the older Bond movies. So then we have the iconic shirtless Daniel Craig scene as he's coming out of the water. This was assumed to be a nod to Ursula Andress from Dr. No from the original James Bond movie, and it's what turned the minds of a lot of people who were hesitant about Daniel Craig being James Bond, because when they filmed this scene, they released this image as marketing material, and people were like, oh, they're giving nods to the old Bond movies, so this movie is in safe hands. That whole scene was not intentional. Daniel Craig was supposed to be swimming up and all the way to the shore, and he hit a sandbank, so he had to stand up as he was walking, towards the first female interest, and that resulted in the scene that was so iconic. It reminds me of Daniel Craig popsicles, which came out right after Quantum of Solace came out. You could buy popsicles that were just his bust from from when he's just shirtless coming out of the I thought that was hilarious. Funny. The card game between Bond and Dimitri is really funny.
Wins the Aston Martin.
He wins it, and he goes, "Oh, your valet ticket."
Yeah. He's your valet ticket, if you please.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, he's the best poker player in MI6.
This scene is actually taken from Ian Fleming's book Goldfinger. So that actual scene takes place in one of the Bond novels, but not Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm. That was the only one I've read. I don't remember it super well, but I could tell you a couple of differences I remember.
Yeah. So how many have you read?
Just the one.
Oh, Casino Royale?
Just Casino Royale.
Is it good? Is it worth reading?
I enjoyed the book. My bassist at the time was super into them, and he had read them all and lent it to me.
When were they written? 30s, 40s?
No, it was like the 60s, I believe. Yeah.
I'd like to read it.
I don't know. They're kind of weird. They're definitely old and very pulpy. And oh, sorry,
that's fine. Eat it.
There's a lot. I will. A lot of differences just in the mindset. So Vesper's character is a receptionist in it, and obviously M is a man. Bond would never take women's orders from a woman.
Right.
They don't really justify their relationship, if I remember correctly,
between Bond and Vesper.
Yeah,
this movie does that really well.
He's just well, I'm in love with her now. She's good looking, and blah blah blah.
That works. That's Bond's psyche for the rest of the series.
And then she just kills herself in it by overdosing.
I read that, yeah, that her death was completely different, and Martin Campbell and the writers said that they rewrote it, obviously, because that wasn't very exciting.
Well, she's a bad character, she's a more fleshed out character, I'll say, not a bad character
in the movie. Yeah, see, that's unusual.
The other big difference was they were playing Baccarat in it.
Yeah, I did actually read that. So we're introduced to Dimitri as Bond is chasing this first pawn of Le Chiffre, who we find out soon hereafter that he is associated with Le Chiffre. And he's instantly unlikable. He's someone that you're going to relish in seeing fail, and it's funny how he fails. They turn this minor villain's death into a really tense scene with a knife, and you're going, they're gonna have a little knife fight, and then they're gonna chase each other some more. Nope, just stabs him, lays him down.
I really because it's in Miami, but just the art install they're at I thought was really cool looking. And it kind of hints at something because it's all the dead men playing poker.
It's a real museum. I want to say it's in New York, but it's made out of real human muscle. That's
so that was that this way?
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was a recreation of it. I read that they recreated it for the movie, so it wasn't the real one, but it is a real exhibit. I like the action scene at the airport because there's a lot going on. There's a lot that gets in the way of what the villain and Bond are trying to do, but it's all really natural obstacles, and that's part of the forethought of making the action work within, the confines of this airport scene. But it's also the forethought of having an action scene in an airport. It makes a lot of sense that there's going to be a lot of obstacles. So there's the truck that's coming towards them that the villain tries to run Bond into as he's on the side of the truck. And then there's the bus that comes out that they have to plow through. So we get to see an explosion. Really well thought out action scenes. And this is one of the many. This scene was actually filmed over, I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. But it was filmed in 3 different locations. I didn't write them down, but I thought that was unique. That whole airport chase scene was filmed in 3 different places. Yeah, 3 different countries, actually.
That's even weirder, really.
There's a cameo from the director, Martin Campbell. He is the truck driver that the villain kills. And then Bond almost gets away. There's a really cool camera misdirection as we think he's going to get out of it, and then he gets whacked on the head, and then we see there's cops all over him, and then he cleverly has attached the bomb to the villain's.
Well, you knew that was going to happen.
Belt loops. I didn't know. I mean, I knew this time.
No, I was watching it because they zoom in and show it.
Yeah,
and I was like, well, he's going to grab it and then like put it on the guy.
He's going to die.
Yeah,
and then we see that Bond's actions have consequences. In that the wife or the girlfriend of Dimitri has died in a hammock rather gruesomely. But then again, her desire for wealth and comfort has put her in harm's way. So obviously she knew that Dimitri was not a good man, so she wasn't safe with him.
All right. So going back to the poker scene, then the first one, he orders a Mount Gay and soda. Which is awesome, because Mount Gay rules.
What's Mount Gay?
It's a type of rum.
Oh, okay.
I've actually been to Paradise Island. I think that's where I'd heard of it.
Oh, cool. This is actually, if you think about it, the first time that Bond has succeeded, because he succeeded in not allowing the plane to get blown up, and therefore the stock prices weren't affected for that airline, and Le Chiffre lost $100 million, which leads to Casino Royale. Yeah. I like that... it's interesting that M mentions 9/11, which places this film within our world. And you could say it's distasteful, but it's actually, there's some truth to it. There was actually evidence of someone having short sold large quantities of airline stocks after 9/11. And then the stocks plummeted and someone made a fortune. So someone supposedly did this right before 9/11, and they were investigated to see if they had any, if they knew what was going to happen. And apparently they were cleared of having known anything. So it was just a stroke of luck, I guess. But that's actually something that really did happen with the stock market during 9/11. So now we're an hour into the movie and we have this great setup. It's really just been Bond looking for terrorist, activity and trying to get himself to Le Chiffre, who he's just found out about. So he knows who he's been looking for. And now that he has failed at gaining the money that he needed to gain to basically pay off his debt, his job is now to make sure that Le Chiffre's plan B, which is to win at Casino Royale, is a failure so that they can use him to get to even bigger terrorists. So then we are introduced to Eva Green, and there's a really funny reference to Moneypenny, who doesn't make an appearance in this movie. She says, "I'm the money," and he says, every penny of it. Great little, it wasn't cheesy at all. It was just for those Bond fans to go, I see what you did there. A couple different actresses were considered for this role. This is the first thing I ever saw Eva Green in. And I know she'd been in other things before then, but I loved her in this film. Angelina Jolie was considered for the role. Naomi Watts, Scarlett Johansson, Charlize Theron. And I see those names, and great actors. Maybe not Angelina Jolie so much. I mean, she's not bad, but I don't love her.
She's bad.
And I couldn't see anyone but Eva Green playing that role, because she played that woman who is aiming for smarts over beauty really well. She played that love interest that we are to fall in love with, just as Bond has, so that we can feel the sting of what happens by the end of the film. This exchange between
I love this exchange.
Bond and Vesper is it shows Bond's ability to read people, so it shows that he's going to be able to play poker well, which I think is really cool. But then they basically try to break each other down, break each other's past down. And he says, you won't be taken seriously. And she says, which would concern any pretty woman with a heart or brain, so she's defending herself. And then probably my favorite line in the movie, after she has grazed him with her assumed accurate judgment, she says, "How is your lamb?" And he says, "Skew it. One sympathizes." Love that line. Then we meet Mathis, Rene Mathis. He is a recurring Bond character. This is the first time that he has been on film. I think I read it said in the official Bond film chronology, so I don't know if that means there's some unofficial Bond movies that have had him in it, but this is the first official Bond movie apparently that has Rene Mathis in it, who is an ally of James Bond. It's brought into question throughout this movie, but ultimately he is an ally. I'll touch now on the other Bond movies and what I thought of them. Quantum of Solace was a huge disappointment. It was directed by Mark Forster, who directed Stay. It's the second movie we watched for our podcast, and I was really excited about him directing until I thought, well, this is an action movie. I don't see how what he really did well on Stay and Finding Neverland and Monsters Ball, how that's going to apply to action. Yeah. And it didn't. Like, he's terrible at directing action. The action scenes made no sense in that movie. And then aside from just directing it, the plot didn't make any sense. The villain really wasn't very compelling. There was kind of a love interest, but throughout the whole movie, he's seeking revenge for what happens to Vesper at the end of this movie. And then Skyfall is considered a lot of fans' favorite Bond movies and favorite Daniel Craig Bond movie, and I think it's the worst one. The plot development is really off. The pacing is really bad. Again, it features a villain that, unlike some of the other Bond villains in the Daniel Craig series, really feels like a villain from an old school Bond movie. So I can understand why.
The one with Javier Bardem?
Yeah. Okay. So, but he's not very fleshed out. He's not threatening because he's not a believable villain. And then they kind of shake things up with M, and the relationship between Bond and M in this motherly sort of way is how they treat her. And it's really cool in concept, but again, it's not executed very well. And then Spectre is, unpopular opinion here, I think the best one since Casino Royale. It's my second favorite Bond movie. Mm. It's really, by the books, there's not really anything surprising in it. They kind of waste the potential of Christoph Waltz, but it's good. It's not great. It's good. So they really didn't capitalize on the potential that this movie sets up. So anyway, a little aside there. I like that as Bond is putting the password on the briefcase, and having watched it again and knowing that he's putting in Vesper, they kind of stop for a second and let him smile to himself before he puts it in. I thought that was a nice touch. But then if you watch him again, he doesn't type the right numbers for Vesper. They do it the second time when they're transferring the funds, but he doesn't type Vesper the first time he types.
I was trying to look at what he was typing.
So yeah, like you said, now they're in Casino Royale, and they're playing Texas Hold'em instead of Baccarat. And Texas Hold'em is an interesting game. It's a balance of risk versus reward versus observation, which is what really makes it unique. Where you're looking for tells, and Le Chiffre has a very obvious tell, like you're aware of it before even Bond brings it up. Fun little piece of trivia: 4/8 in Texas Hold'em is called an Octopussy, which was a Bond movie from 1983. The poker scenes in this movie were inspired. They inspired Martin Campbell by The Sting and Maverick, and then there was another one I didn't recognize. But Maverick is like the best. Yeah, Maverick's like the best card movie ever. So funny and really compelling in the way that it presents poker. The shower scene is one of my favorite scenes. Again, it shows this really sweet, tender moment between James Bond and Vesper Lynd. In the script, Eva Green was to be in her underwear, but Daniel Craig actually stepped forward and said she wouldn't have taken the time to take off her clothes to get in the shower. So they rewrote it, and then they actually filmed this scene in one take, and they took the first take and said that was perfect, and that's what ended up in the movie. But I like it. It's it's showing her reaction to having helped Bond kill someone. Yeah. And that definitely takes a toll on someone who's never done it before. Then they're disposing of the bodies, and Bond and Mathis are up on a balcony, and they're framing this dude, and I'm going, who's this guy? Is he a bad guy, or did they just pick a random person? Yeah. It's a nice twist that Bond loses the first game of poker. You assume he's going to win because he knows his tell, but he's overconfident. And apparently Mathis has told, we find out later, Mathis has told Le Chiffre that Bond knows what his tell is, and now he's using his tell to get Bond out of the game. They never explain how Bond knew that. By the end of the movie, it's called into question because Vesper ends up being a double agent. They call into question Mathis and say maybe he's innocent, and he says just because she's guilty doesn't mean he's innocent. So maybe that didn't actually happen. But what led Bond to suspecting Mathis? Because when Vesper leaves the dinner after he has won, And he instantly goes, wait, Mathis, and knows that something's up, like something's going to happen to Vesper. How did he know that? And then how did he know when he tells Vesper that Mathis told Le Chiffre about his tale? Is he just assuming that, or how does he know, basically? And it might not have happened because Mathis might be innocent. But that's the only thing they don't really explain that I wanted explained. He goes to order another drink after he's lost. Shaken or stirred? Do I look like I give a damn? Love it. And then he's like, screw it, grabs a steak knife. I'm just going to go kill him. Yeah. Which is really his solution when he fails. Yeah. I guess it's better than, them getting out and wreaking more havoc in the world. And then we've got more poker. Bond buys back into the game thanks to his brother from Langley. And Le Chiffre and his cohorts have put something in his drink. This is, this provides more variety to the suspense of the movie. All the action scenes kind of revolve around a different method of trajectory and different weapons. And this is another, this poison scene where he's kind of isolated, he grabs the glass and the salt and tries to make himself vomit, and then goes to the car and he's talking with talking with M and the crew, on how to get out of, how to survive. That was a really suspenseful scene. He's only got one shot before he passes out.
Use the EpiPen or the adrenaline pen.
Other than the spoof of Casino Royale in which Bond dies and goes to heaven, apparently.
Right? I don't remember. You don't remember. I own it after we watch it.
Other than that, this is the only Bond movie where Bond actually dies and then comes back to life. The scene itself was devised by a physician in Aberdeen named James Ferguson. After this film, he was kept on retainer for the Daniel Craig Bond movies as a advisor for kind of the health and the reactions of what these characters would go through and how they might survive these situations. Mm-hmm. And then Vesper, of course, inevitably, she saves him. And that last hand. Oh, no, he gets back at the table. That last hand nearly killed me.
Yeah. I like that line a lot.
Is it? Oh, Vesper says, great line. Just because you've done something doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. It's kind of that two rights make a wrong mentality that he has. Mm-hmm. And then this is the scene where Bond realizes Mathis is up to no good and has coaxed her somewhere, and then he's running. And then we think, oh, it's going to be a car chase because there's, he's chasing a car. Mm-hmm. And then Vesper's in the middle of the road just out of nowhere. Swerves out of the way, car flips. During the time of this filming, when it came out, this scene broke the world record in 2006 for the most barrel rolls assisted by a cannon in a stunt scene. There are 7 full rolls on the car. There's a cannon behind the driver's seat that causes it to flip initially, and then we get as many rolls as we can get out of that. They used 3 cars. They totaled 3 cars until they got this shot. And each car was $300,000 a piece.
Even though they destroyed one car, made me really sad. I know. That's like, how much do you make in a year?
Exactly. And then we've got Le Chiffre. I'm afraid your friend Mathis is really my friend Mathis. And I think, while he said that, and we're led to believe at this point that Mathis is working for the other side.
As a double agent.
It could, in reality, just be Le Chiffre got his phone and texted Vesper from his phone, and he's just saying, I'm Mathis, because he does end up being a good guy. And then we get to see one of the most painful torture scenes of all time.
It's almost the same in the book. I had to look this up because I thought it wasn't the same. But it was a rug beater in the book.
Oh, God. Yeah. That sounds awful.
Otherwise, it's like...
I don't know. Like this, with the rope having less surface area, might be worse. But he had to be really good at aiming, hitting that spot. We see the depths here that Le Chiffre is willing to go now that his back is against the wall. And it's literally against the wall. He's, minutes from being killed. And Bond, we see fear in Bond's face for the first time. Initially in the scene, he overcomes that really quickly because he is a man. And
because he's a man.
Yeah. And then, as Vesper says, he's more man than anyone she's ever met. His pinky finger, at least.
And his pinky.
But then when he realizes that he himself and Vesper are both in danger, he kind of realizes that this might be the end for both of them. And we see that fear kind of wash over his face. But he still rises above it and really makes this a funny scene. We get to see Daniel Craig throughout this movie is just really enjoying himself. Mm-hmm. And that lessons and lessons throughout the series. And you can't really blame him because the writing kind of tapers down into not being very polished throughout the other Daniel Craig Bond movies. It starts with Quantum and then Skyfall. Spectre brings it up a little bit, but he said on TV that he did not want to be Bond anymore. He would rather he said I'd rather kill myself than play Bond again.
What was it, like twice the amount of the money
he got $5 million for these 4 movies. They offered him $10 million for 2 more and he still said no. Which is funny because Pierce Brosnan, in order to get him in for a fifth Bond movie, would have cost the studio $30 million. That's how much he was worth, apparently, or how much he wanted. Yeah. And so that's why he didn't get into a fifth film. And I should have looked up how many movies other Bond actors played in, but 4 has been the number for the last 2 Bonds in the more modern James Bond movies.
Timothy Dalton only had 2.
Really? Oh, wow.
He was my favorite. He had 2 of the worst movies. I think he's a good one. Pierce Brosnan would have been better, but he was too old, I think, when he got the part.
Oh, yeah. Well, Daniel Craig was 38 when he got the part.
No, but I'm not. That's a different thing entirely. Yeah. But just they were trying to get him play it, I think, when he was in his 20s, early 30s.
Brosnan?
And he was Remington Steele.
Yeah.
And then when he finally got it, I think he was in his 40s at least.
So I'll reference this since we're talking about it. It's been rumored that Hugh Jackman has turned down the role of James Bond several times. He doesn't confirm nor deny that. I couldn't really see that. No. It was when he was doing the X-Men movies. He was offered it. He did confirm that. And his reasoning was that he didn't want to play 2 iconic characters at the same time. That could be really stressful.
I can't do this.
Well, first world problems. But the number 1 pick by Martin Campbell was actually...
Was it Idris Elba? Because I know that's what the internet wanted.
Henry Cavill, but he was too young. He was 22 when this movie came out. So they didn't ultimately cast him. But right now, he's kind of at the top of the list. Idris Elba is another one, although that's really controversial for
Black
a lot of
Bond.
people. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are saying he's not a black character, and I'm like, and let them change it up.
M is a woman.
Daniel Craig was blonde. He's not a blonde character.
Well, that was people hated that
and it worked. Yeah, people hated that until he rose out of the water. And
I think people were like, oh no, he's blonde.
No, he's my favorite Bond. But again, I'm not really well versed in the Bond series. The torture scene, I love the lighting and the framing during that scene. It's pretty fantastic, especially the shot after Lashif is shot and then he falls into the frame with a bullet hole in his head right at the foreground of the frame. I love that. And then after they have come to and they're in the hospital, Vesper and Bond have survived. Her line, "If all that was left of you was your smile and your little finger, you'd still be more of a man than anyone I've ever met."
Because you know what I can do with my
little finger. That's because you know what I can do with my little finger. Great line.
She doesn't know.
But in the scene, watching it again, it's so heartbreaking that she's playing him right now. She's, she just needs him on her side because having Bond, against you is you're going to lose. Well, maybe not necessarily this Bond yet, but she'd rather not, have to leave and be chased by him. So she's befriending and allowing him to fall in love with her when her interests are somewhere else. And it's really hard to watch that,
So this is my biggest question, because in here they're saying, because he says, why did they spare the both of us or whatever? Mm-hmm. And M says it's because they paid him off or whatever.
Yeah, she said she'd give them the money for his life.
Is that she definitive according to the other movies too?
No, it's not really confirmed in the next movie. Then all the next movie confirms is that she was trying to get her and her boyfriend out of a mess that they were in, basically. And then we see that Bond is willing to leave his life and his work for Vesper. And it's really
an idiot.
It's really, why would you do that? You're so awesome. It's really unique that this movie tells an origin story and it kind of tells an ending with a twist in the next 20 minutes. Yeah. But you could stop the movie right here and you've got a complete Bond story from origin to ending. Just
turns it off.
Yeah, just turn it off. Well,
movie.
Yeah, Bond did his thing and now he's retired. So that's why I love this movie, because it's very complete. It leaves it, at a cliffhanger by the end of the movie, but it's not something that you're dying to see the rest of. It's a very complete and well-told story. I was excited for the next couple movies, but it's okay that they didn't pan out, because this movie didn't really leave anything that needed to be resolved in terms of the story it was telling and the characters that it brought forth and took away. And then we find out that Vesper has her own agenda. The first time I saw this, I hated this. I was so mad at the movie
that she did that?
But it made sense, because this is the origin story of Bond, and we need to find out why he becomes so, vested in his work and not... and why he becomes such a womanizer. He had to fall in love and fall out of love quickly in order to become the man that he is. But I was just not having it the first time I saw this. I hated the last 20 minutes of this movie. I'll kill her. Allow me. Cold-hearted. Yeah. He knows that she's betrayed him.
I thought that was awesome. I like the guy's single glass.
Yeah, that's the modern patch, the modern pirate.
Well, no, he was wearing an eye patch in the other scene when you see him, though.
Well, he's He's getting with the times, Dan.
I guess.
Let it happen. And then he shoots him through the patch with a nail gun.
Yeah.
Like the nail gun. That's awesome. So this is one scene where they use CGI, and it was to insert the sinking building model. So the sinking building was real, but it was a model on a green screen, and then they inserted it into this setting in Italy. So that's that's probably the biggest use of CGI. And then the other use, Daniel Craig said, was just to hide wires from a lot of the acrobatic stunt scenes, and that's it.
Mad Max.
Yeah, and that's why Mad Max is so good. Although I've only seen the first one, which I don't consider good, and the new one, and it's because it's all so practical, and that's why this movie really worked. And the other Bond movies, to their credit, the other ones that came after this one, were similar in that it was straight action, everything was real. But man, the Quantum of Solace, like the next one that Mark Forster did, there's just so many cuts. Like, I'd be interested to see what the average length of a frame is, because it's probably like 1 second. It's like worse than
Dark City?
Yeah, worse than a Christopher Nolan movie. Yeah, Dark City. And then she locks the elevator and says, "I'm sorry, James." And I'm like, "That's it. You owe me a damn explanation." And
she kills herself.
Like you said, in the book, she kills herself with a sleeping pill overdose and confesses her love for James Bond in a note. And in this, she merely drowns herself, which is like. Not the way I would do it.
But he still tries to like save her.
Yeah. Well, of course. He doesn't have answers yet. He knows now that she is someone that he needs to question. And of course, he was in love with her like 30 minutes ago. So of course.
But he's just ready to shoot her in the back.
You want to believe
it was.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So I don't know, like him trying to save her.
Well,
just so he could kill her himself.
He was pinned down into a position where it's like, I'm going to die. So let's get rid of her too. Again, his answer to having failed is,
And then, yeah, but and then she like swims to the other end, but then it's kind of still like save me.
Yeah, well, I don't know. When you start drowning, you're going to be like, you shouldn't have done this. It was a really heartbreaking scene, or very well filmed the way they did it, but it's it's pretty hard to watch. And then we see the old guy, Mr. White, in the window, and this is kind of the beginning of the series in terms of where they're going to go from here, which is again squandered potential.
I like the phone call with him and M though.
Yeah,
you didn't get the money already?
Yeah.
I was seeing deposit that today.
Like, that's a shame. Didn't think they'd miss it.
I like that. He's like kind of acted like he had stolen it. Just so you deposit that.
Yeah,
today.
he realizes
I'm on
that.
It right now.
I probably shouldn't say anything because I don't know what's going on yet.
Yeah.
And then I like his line where after M has said, do we assume Matt is innocent now? He says it could have been a double blind. So he's throwing a little poker terminology amid his pain. And then the line from the end of the book is the same as what he says here. He says the bitch is dead. That's part of the end of the Casino Royale book. And then he catches up with Mr. White, James Bond. We hear the theme song. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. And then the first time watching the movie, I was like, oh yeah, the theme song. Yeah. The movie was so good at telling this origin story, making this character so much more interesting than he's ever been, that I didn't realize until the end of the movie that we didn't even get that signature James Bond tune until the end. But that's brilliant because it makes sense that he has now established who he is, and we're ready to watch more Bond. The 3-piece Navy suit that he's wearing at the end is a Navy version of the gray suit that Sean Connery wore in Goldfinger. So a little nod there. And interestingly, by the end of the movie, he has failed his 3 main missions. He was to capture Le Chiffre, and then when he found out about Vesper, he should have captured her so that they could be questioned. And then he also lost all the money that MI6 donated to him winning the poker game. So it's interesting that he fails so much in this movie, and it makes him, again, a very human character. And I felt like I was going to say one. Oh, so the beginning, what I really liked about Quantum of Solace, what kind of got it off to a good start, the next movie, is that it picks up right here. From this scene, he's actually driving in the car with White in the trunk and escaping from White's cronies that are trying to save him. So it's literally like 5 minutes after this scene is the beginning of Quantum of Solace, in just a really shoddily directed and edited, especially action scene. But it's really cool that they pick up right where they leave off in the next movie. But it kind of just slowly degrades in its compellingness as it introduces characters. Daniel Craig was considered for the role from his work in Layer Cake. Did you ever see that?
I love Layer Cake. Yeah.
I thought it was all right. I watched it actually after this movie, and I didn't think it was amazing, but I could understand.
The ending's the best part.
Well, his line at the end of the movie was kind of foreshadowing to his getting the role of James Bond. His line at the end of Layer Cake is, "My name if you knew that, you'd be as clever as me, which is kind of a Bond, James Bond kind of thing. So that was kind of cool. I got trivia now. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything we didn't touch on?
I think that was about it. Like I said, I didn't have my notes, but I'm pretty sure I touched on everything I'd written.
I peppered most of the trivia in throughout our discussion, so I've only got a few more to add here that I didn't touch on. This is the first Bond film to be based on a full-length Ian Fleming novel since Moonraker, which was 27 years ago. So every other film has been kind of its own little Bond story for the past 27 years, or the past 37 years now. Daniel Craig lost his 2 front teeth in one of the earlier fight scenes that they filmed, and they had to fly in his dentist to get his teeth replaced. Oh, God. Daniel Craig initially rejected the role a year before he took the role. He changed his mind when he read the script. So they finished the script. They said, "What do you think?" And he thought the character had kind of fallen into this rut of being the same thing, and he was right. And they showed him the script, and he found that obviously they were doing something new with the character, so he wanted to do it. He's the first actor to have been nominated for a BAFTA for playing James Bond. First actor to be nominated for the role of James Bond. Ian Fleming celebrated completing this book by buying a golden typewriter, which Pierce Brosnan recently bought for $52,000. It was the first ever Bond book.
Yeah.
And it was the last Bond book to be filmed. So of all the books have been filmed now, this was the last one. So I think it's kind of ironic that the first book was the last one filmed. It's the highest grossing Bond movie until Skyfall came out. This one I thought was funny. The latter 3 Pierce Brosnan movies all released in the same year as an Austin Powers movie. I never caught that Austin Powers movies, which are spoofs of James Bond, came out in the same years that their James Bond movies came out. So this was the first movie since GoldenEye that came out in a year that an Austin Powers movie didn't come out in.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know that.
So that is Casino Royale, one of my favorite action movies of all time, my favorite Bond movie. Total 5 out of 5 for me. Obviously, you seem to like it more than I thought you would. Watching the movie, I thought there wouldn't be much discussion because other than the first film and then... Well, no, I guess I take that back. We've only done 2 action movies, and we have had a lot to talk about with those, especially with Dark City and even with The Running Man. So I would say...
And those were the movies I showed you.
Yeah, exactly. I would say 3.5.
That's exactly what I gave it.
Boom.
Good, Jesse.
Cool. So I have something unique I want to try to do for our next episode. This might seem unfair, but you can get me back next week if you want to. I want to request the movie you're going to recommend because my brother has offered to make a jingle for us, a little opening sounder that we can play before every episode. And I think to get him, to kind of ease him towards doing that, if we were to do one of his favorite movies, he might be coerced into making that jingle happen for us. So I'd like to watch The Thing, which is a movie I know you've seen and enjoyed. And I've never seen it. I've always wanted to watch it. One of his favorite horror movies. So are you cool with that?
I am. I love
week,
The Thing.
Next time, if there's a movie that you know I've seen that you haven't, you want to watch, so you can pick it, or I can give you a list if you want to do it that way. But
it'll be Ex Machina. I don't know yet. That's the one I'm always asking you. You're like, Dan, just watch it.
I've always said that. I was like, just watch it, Dan. It's fine. I just won't recommend it. You're like, every week.
No, it was just funny. The other day, I meant to show you. My friend looks like kind of like the girl on the cover.
Oh yeah.
And I snapped it to her, and I was like, I haven't seen this movie. Were you in it? And then everybody's comments were like, Dan, watch the movie. And I was like, yo, Jesse, gonna watch this movie?
It's an awesome movie. You'll love it.
Yeah. So
we can discuss it if you wanted to.
No,
you think about it.
I don't think about it.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for listening. Next week we're gonna watch The Thing.
Yeah.
This has been
John Carpenter.
Cool. What?
John Carpenter is The Thing.
Kurt Russell. Thank you as always. This has been Show and Tell, and I have been Jesse Hughes.
And I'm Daniel Gilmore. Daniel A. Gilmore.
Whoa. Take it easy, guys.